the HR function starts where we start prospecting a candidate right up to the point of a candidate leaving and then potentially becoming a part of an alumni network where we keep prospecting and bringing them back into the organization per se. This entire life cycle of employment that we are talking about is hugely getting impacted by AI.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm your host, Rahul Abhishek, the founder of HireWithEve.ai, an AI agent for applicant screening that helps reduce hiring time by 90%. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, and it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Venugopal Akireddy, who is joining us from Gurugram, India. Welcome, Venu. And let me quickly introduce also Venu. Venu is currently the Chief People Officer at a company called Wrogn, spelled WROGN. And this is a Virat Kohli-backed lifestyle brand that has achieved an impressive annual revenue of $750 million as of November 2024. Venu has had a distinguished career spanning over 2 decades and has held pivotal roles at organizations such as HSBC, Deutsche Bank, and EY. So again, welcome to the podcast, Venu.
Great. Thanks so much, Rahul, for that introduction and for inviting me over to this platform. Good to be here.
Perfect. So, as we get into the conversation and as a warm-up question, I often ask my guests that we have a notion internally at HireWithEve is that we believe HRs are the superheroes of the organization. Why we do so is because these are the people who are really bringing the team that executes on the mission and vision of the company, and without them, the team wouldn't exist. So these are the people who kind of bring it, make it live. And so, I'm just like your perspective on that notion. What do you think? Agree, disagree, and so on?
Okay. Well, superhero, not so sure really, because superheroes are mythical. None of them exist, and HR does exist. So that ways. But yeah, I mean, the role does call upon superhuman effort to, if not for anything else, remain sane. In fact, I'll give credit to one of the memes that I had read, which said that the superpowers of HR would include that they are a master of multitasker, unofficial lawyer, psychologist, event planner, teacher, career planner, detective, counselor, uh, strategist, communicator of tough messages, all in one. So, HR, the function itself plays so many roles, and the leadership of the organization does bank upon HR to play all these roles successfully at all times.
Yeah.
So much so, yes, if you want to call it a superhero, so be it. But then they are all mythical.
Yeah. But then, as you said, the hats or number of roles that you have is too many, several. And perhaps that what makes you the superhero. But then, with there's always the other side of the coin. What would you say would be some of the inherent, so to say, weaknesses that you've observed where you think the function could really benefit if actively worked upon?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of challenges. In fact, so for example, HR as a function, I believe, is one which is always, you know, in the race to remain relevant, to continue to have a seat on the table. We won the seat on the table. We are there, but it is one thing to get a seat on the table, but it's quite another to sustain it per se.
Right.
So we need to keep pace with everything that is happening in the business, which means that I can't say that that part business takes care of, because now I am business. There is
Right.
nobody else, right? So that challenge remains. Plus, again, we need to keep pace with tech to stay relevant to the next gen, because the next gen lingo itself is something that you need to keep pace with. You need to balance, the practical with ideal, because, like you said, the vision, and all, sometimes they border on very idealistic statements, and practically in the market, you do have a very different approach to operationalizing things. So how do you balance the two, stay true to both sides of the coin? That is a challenge. And in spite of all of these, the base function remains the same. Like, we continue to be an employee's advocate. Now with startups, you have entrepreneurs who are vastly impatient, more impatient than a regular established business house per se. So how to balance that mercurial approach of a young dynamic entrepreneur to the employees approach, who are also equally young and have a lot of entitlement mentality because they've been brought up in a very different generation per se. That exuberance, how do you sustain it? How do you sustain the energy levels? That continues to remain a challenge for
Hmm.
HR.
Yeah. So I mean, if we just go a bit deeper, that would be yeah, insightful. Is how do you think what is the way to go about it? This kind of when we talk about mercurial, and we'll of course talk about the current generation a bit more when we go forward in the conversation. But at this point, how do you think what has worked? What is the way to go about that, managing them?
Uh, Whenever, and this is a much often spoken about topic as to how do you handle this Gen, I think now it is Gen Beta, which has started, read somewhere that, okay, 2025 onwards, we are into Gen Beta. So lucky to be alive to go through all those. This is an oft spoken topic about, okay, how to handle this generation per
Hmm.
se. My very simple response to that is, please learn to accept them as they are, right? Because it is not that they are something new. It is there in every generation. A certain percentage of population will always be the rebel. A certain percentage of population will always be compliant, and a certain percentage will be, I'll go with whatever you say, kind of thing, right? As we grow senior into the organization, or the senior management of the organization, obviously the junior layers are the people who are coming in from the newer generation. And given that now we are coming up with a generation which is born up in an information age, they had access to internet the day they were born.
Hmm.
For me, www was not there when I was born. Right through my schooling, it wasn't there. It was a hint of something very big which is happening in the world when I was in college. And now the generation is born with a mobile in hand while eating food or anything. They know how to navigate tech. Their attention span is very small. Their patience level is humongously small. So what we need to do is, instead of mocking at them, saying that, oh my god, this generation doesn't learn this, doesn't know how to do this, it'll become much better if we accept them the way they are and try to then mold them, because we need to remember that we are on borrowed time. Very soon this world will belong to them, and they will need to learn to accept us into their lives, maybe for a few more years as we move out of the workforce. But if we do not accept them now, and we do not instill the values that we need to for them to be able to take on pressures, it will become equally difficult for us to survive with them as they take on businesses and they become the leaders of the industry.
Right.
So it is important from that aspect. I think my one simple thing is, accept them the way they are, tell them what is right, what is wrong, the choice remains theirs. We have never been in a situation in any generation where we have been able to change that. Past, of course, the baby boomers, where government jobs were the only ones which existed. But after that, since the private sector has taken over, I think that is something that we have had to learn. And I think we need to continue to learn and practice that.
Yeah, and that's a great kind of viewpoint and insight into that, and of course how the whole kind of economy has worked from government to private actually even facilitates that. So that makes a lot of sense. Now that we're talking about generations and time, one of the current kind of, I would say, the trend that we observe often when we read about HR topics is the trend of future of work. So yeah, it would be great to have your point of view and perspective into this particular trend. What do you think of it? How do you think it's going to progress, impact again?
Yeah. I think a lot of it thanks to the World Economic Forum. The term has been coined and then become a common parlance across the various industry groups. Uh, Basically, the way I look at it, I think there is going to be a shift in the impact businesses.
Right.
For example, 20 years back, the impact business would have been an outsourcing industry, a
Right.
BPO or a KPO or a IT outsourcing industry. Going forward, and maybe 10 years back, that was the anything related to mobile phones was an impact industry. Anything related to social media like WhatsApp or any of the online gaming was an impact industry. I think the impact industries are going to see a shift. Probably by my reading, the businesses, we could probably split it into the impact creating businesses and the impact enabling businesses.
Right.
Impact creating businesses could be anything which is our modern takes on green energy, sustainable businesses, green buildings, the real estate per se, environmental studies, etc. Anybody who is involved in those businesses, it could be anything which could help improve human health. For example, the medical research on various kinds of diseases, predictability of diseases, pre-cure before they set in based on your DNA, or even to be able to analyze your body functions through wearables. All of that will be an industry which will see a boom. What I also see is anything that makes next gen computing easier. For example, networking technologies will change.
Mm.
Your I don't know, people say that mobile phones will not remain anymore, so probably everything will be in your glasses or any such place. So anything which works on semiconductors, for example, it's big. At least for the next 5 years, we'll see a huge boom on that. uh, then you have businesses which will improve mobility. So you have sustainable travel, self-driven cars, flying cars, EVs, maybe even aeroplanes which are battery driven. Who knows? Environmental friendly flying, whatever you may want to call. And then you have services like the basic services, which will always remain and remain a big part of the world. So, for example, like medical practitioners, teachers, surgeries, cutting edge technologies, all of these will remain as impact creators. There will be certain businesses which will enable these industries to be successful, which will be like your data and analytics, AI, Gen AI, which will be an enabling tech, which will help these industries do their jobs much better. Anything which relates to manual data management probably will become extinct.
Right.
Everything will be automated. Uh, People who are involved in employee health and well-being, or people health and well-being in general, DEI, trainers, educators, career counselors, etc. Probably there will be those skills which will be required, because simply because there are so many choices now that people need to tell, okay, what all could you choose?
Yeah.
Unlike earlier when we had very limited career options available. And then, of course, there is a lot on the communication bit, a lot of it, which will be automated. And I'm not meaning to say telecom and all. All I'm talking about here is your internal, external communications, your drafting of emails, your language models, the way you communicate your messages on your website or in your pitches, etc., will all get automated. Um, Anything which automates a physically repeatable task will be there as
Mm.
a sustainable business. So, which means when you look at skills, skills like deep analytics, deep research, AI, of course, which is today, in addition to skills for frontline jobs like your delivery, sales, education, trainers, etc., will see a rise. That's what my reading of the future is. At least for the next 10 years, who knows? The world is changing fast.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, definitely a very holistic perspective on it. So yeah, future of work would is getting impacted across industries with these new technologies. I mean, we never know, mobile phones might be embedded in us, and
Yeah, why
you have
not?
to think, and you're able to talk to whoever you want to talk to, and then you have glasses. So makes a lot of sense. So, but then on the topic of LLMs, and then you have AI. And as you mentioned that, a lot of these manual work will start to get impact. If we start to look at the whole thing from the lens of HR and HR workflows, how do you imagine and right now observing AI impacting HR workflows?
So that change has already started. A lot of that change has already started. If you see, the HR function starts where we start prospecting a candidate, right up to the point of a candidate leaving and then potentially becoming a part of an alumni network where we keep prospecting and bringing them back into the organization per se. This entire life cycle of employment that we are talking about is hugely getting impacted by AI. Look at it from the start, from the point of prospecting. How do I uh, search for the CVs? How do I shortlist the CVs? How do I screen the CVs? And then how do I present right up to the point of the first interview? Everything is being driven by AI today, per se. So you have a lot of tools in the market, which, and you don't need to specifically subscribe to those tools. The online portals are already starting to do it. They are deploying these tools to say that, okay, if you have a subscription of my platform, AI will make it easier for you to reach that perfect CV that you want, right? Similarly, AI will be able to ensure that the perfect CV is screened well and the candidate gets shortlisted through a pre-driven test or a pre-driven kind of screening questions, so that we know that, okay, yes, this person will actually fit in. It's not just the CV, the person also fits into the JD that we are talking about, and then present that candidate for interview. So there are a lot of things which are already happening in this space. In addition to that, of course, there are many industries which deploy a pre-assessment test or anything that is also automated nowadays. Most of them are conducted by AI. So to that effect, the TA function really is already into the throes of AI, per se. Coming to, once a person is selected, the negotiation part is something that AI does not do, which we still depend on the humans for, and thankfully so maybe. But beyond that, if you see onboarding, again, AI is facilitating smooth onboarding. If you have, of course, COVID taught us how to do things remotely, but thanks to AI, it is becoming very high quality, right? You have avatars meeting you online, and you have avatars telling you that, okay, this is the company that you are joining, etc. So that makes it that much easier or smoother, or creates that wow effect when a person is onboarded, per se. You also have during the journey of an employee, you have AI bots within an organization which are kind of freeing up the bandwidth of HR personnel in answering those mundane day-to-day questions, yet to be perfected, and a lot of it obviously not yet there, but pretty sure in future that's going to be there with Gen AI. The tech is learning very fast, and I'm sure they will be there. And then, of course, the exit function, things like exit interview and all are automated anyways. But more importantly, how to keep in touch with a person after they have left the organization, and how to keep them engaged so that they remain interested in returning, to become an alumni with us and interested in returning. That is also, AI can play a big part in that also. So all of these functions, if you see in HR, are something which are really being driven by AI. Now, one part which I have not touched upon during this is actually the performance management, which forms a big part of an employee's journey in any organization. And AI can play a huge part there. There have been many kind of steps which have been taken by many companies, but the one which caught my eye was that, what is the pain point in a performance management process? This is one of the entrepreneurs whom I was speaking to, and he said the pain point is that in a performance management process, I need to have a discussion with a person and give a rating. Now, discussion is easy. I anyways have it daily. But a rating and an agreement on that rating is a pain. Why did you rate me 2 and not 3? Why did you rate me 3 and not 4? Why did you rate me 1 and not 2? Etc. 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 And nobody is happy at the end of it. You can give any number of explanations. People are not happy at the end of it. So that entrepreneur said, I want to develop a system where the rating is system driven, with a human intervention to overdrive it if I want, right? And the rating can be system driven if, let us say, your OKRs are so acutely defined in a measurable way that at the end of the year, I don't need to really sit and judge you and give you a rating. I say that, okay, your OKR, these were the 5 OKRs that you were pursuing in the year. These are the outcomes that have been there against this target. At this outcome level, this is the rating that the system has generated and allotted to you. Of course, that has to be predefined, which means that we need to really educate ourselves on OKRs better and how to define those OKRs in a very measurable way. So that is the challenge that is going to be there. But I do believe that, yes, barring a few of these aspects which we have not yet touched upon by AI, most of the HR journey is already on an AI journey.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good that you also elaborated on performance management a bit more. So what is the kind of challenge there that is yet to be addressed? So potentially this particular entrepreneur can address it, and then a lot of TA different components of their responsibilities are getting automated. So yeah, those are insightful. Now talking about the actual kind of the duration, the tenure, so to say, that a person has with the company. So how do you think the whole aspect of employee experience can be impacted or is being impacted with AI from, again, an HR lens?
Yeah. So that is so once a person joins in and their tenure in the organization is the space where there is a lot of scope. Like I said, even performance management becomes part of that journey. But there is a lot of scope in that because while the TA part of it is hugely impacted,
Right.
I think during the journey is something that we are still working out. While all the functions that we feel can be automated, they are already work is in progress on that. For example, you have your climate surveys, which are done now are more AI driven and more instant rather than a once or no once in 2 year or once in a year kind of a scenario. You have your feedback mechanism, which is much more impactful because you know what questions are relevant to a certain population and not relevant to a certain population. So you don't those questions don't come up in a survey. Irrelevant questions don't come up in a survey to me, kind of a thing. Uh, More importantly, a lot of their journey is filled with self-help tools,
Right.
which was not the case earlier. For everything, there used to be either a walk up to the HR function or a call to the HR function, which these self-help tools are now making it possible that they don't need to really interact with a human being there to get an answer to a mundane day-to-day operational question. You just log into the tool. There are something like internal Google engines who will not be Google, of course, but internal engine search engines where you can just log in, post a query, and the answer will pop up. So that is making the journeys of employees inside the organization much more robust, much more swift and responsive in terms of what they are looking for and relevant. So, which means that it is strengthening HR in identifying employee sentiment in a specific team, a specific geography, a specific org structure, pertinent to a specific manager or not, whether there is a problem area. So it becomes easier for HR to identify that. They can then suggest proactive measures to address those instead of waiting for somebody to walk up and raise that issue. The net, this journey where HR was more of a support function is now converting into so earlier it was just a facilitator or a responder basically. Now it is more about strategic contributor saying that okay, this is the kind of queries will come, let me just address it beforehand so that they don't need to reach out to me for that. So therefore you see a lot of the HR helplines which were there in companies, the manning there has reduced a lot. We don't need to really man them so much because many of these are available either through internal communities or internal search engines or internal self-help tools. The bots, everything which we are doing on bots is again an AI driven thing.
Hmm.
So a lot of companies have already deployed a lot of bots to be able to answer a lot of things. Again, like I said, not perfected, very rudimentary at this stage maybe, but the work that has gone in the last 2 years has been big. And I'm pretty sure over the next 5 years, this will become so day to day that we'll stop talking about it probably.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the pace at which the use cases, the agents and bots at which they're being developed, for sure, we'll have to really see what is the opportunity to even talk. Yeah. Going forward, and then there is AI. There is this impact on TA and then the whole kind of life cycle of an employee. As an HR leader, what in this new kind of age, so to say, what are some of the challenges that are coming across your table now, which you find it to be new and unique? Uh, or of course,
Well,
like, yeah, the usual suspects.
yeah. So I talk about the challenges. So from an HR standpoint, like we have touched upon in the beginning itself, a big challenge always remains how do you sustain your seat at the table. and all the challenges that come with the role are encompassing that. So multiple challenges, both whether it is at team level, whether it is at org level, whether it is at a learning level. Uh, when I started my career, a big challenge was to figure whether I belong here or not, right? Because I joined an organization, it was a manufacturing organization, and there was a set way of doing things, and my way of doing things was not aligned to that. So, which is also true about today's generation. For example, today's generation is not used to writing a proper formal email or a letter. It is when we started, it was more SMS. Today, it is more chat and smileys and emojis. So asking them to even write a note is something which is like a challenge. So those were the challenges that, okay, do I even belong here? My first boss actually, he was a fantastic mentor, and he shielded me a lot during my first job in my career, and thanks to him. The learning is that whatever I may have studied, whatever I may have qualified with, whatever I may have done, um, I always have to be a student. If I'm not a student today, then I'm becoming, I'll deplete tomorrow. That's how it is. So it can never reach a stage where I say that, okay, now I have become so and so in the industry, so now I know it all. That can never be the case. So the biggest challenge for HR is never to say, yeah, I've seen it enough, been there, done that. So that is one big challenge which is there. Uh, you know, uh, which would bring with it that, okay, when any youngster walks up to you and talks about an issue, you have to acknowledge that, okay, so, I read a very silly survey that almost 74% of students in class 12 do not know how to change a bulb, right? So when I hire these people in my organization, they may not know what I'm talking about because they have not seen it. They don't know maybe what is grammar. They don't know maybe how to talk to a vendor. They don't know maybe why a certain clause has to be in an agreement when a vendor agreement is being signed, or what should be the checklist which I should follow when I am trying to pursue a client. Those for me might be like the back of my hand, but for them, if they don't know, I shouldn't be feeling surprised that, oh, if you don't know this, what are you doing here, kinds. No, I should acknowledge that, okay, maybe the world is not there where it was, and then try to just align to that need and move on with that. And that is what I also meant when I said that accept them as they are,
Yeah.
right? The other challenge also, of course, remains is that we also need to be uh, abreast of whatever is tech, because if I am not there when this person walks up to me and talks about something, and I am like, Acha, I don't know what you're talking about, then the person will never walk up to me a second time to talk, right? So I need to keep myself abreast about what is there. If I'm not doing that, at least I may not be an expert on that. I'm not saying that I need to know everything, be all and no, it cannot be. But I should at least know the term. I should at least know the verbiage. I should at least know what area of the world he is talking about, or he or she is talking about, to be able to make them feel a part of the organization. And that's when they will start talking to me, opening up to me, and then start talking about HR. So that is probably the challenge that I see. And if we stop doing that, if we stop learning, if we stop accepting what is current, then slowly we start losing our seat on the table. Probably that is the biggest challenge.
Right. So, what we are saying is that we have to be accepting. We have to see things for the way it is without being critical of it, and then working with
Yeah,
it and kind of together and build. Uh, so
absolutely.
so we know soon we'll be coming to an end to our podcast. However, before we do so, one of the final question for you is now, if you are talking to the current generation, and specifically the ones who's about to join the workforce, what would be then your advice to them? How should they prepare for joining the workforce?
We are talking about the HR line of
Yeah,
work, or
yeah. Let's talk about it from the lens of the HR itself.
okay, understood. Okay, so well, not that I am in a position to be advising anybody per se. Everybody builds their own and should build their own. My advice, if at all, would be that please go ahead and do you. Don't need to ape anybody, don't need to follow anybody. You just need to learn, but then have the resilience, right? So if you are in that mode where you do you, then you accept the result, and learn to quickly regroup and start afresh, because failures will come.
Yeah.
Uh, Corporate world is not a kind world. Uh, Somebody said life is not fair, and that's true. So you will face your places where you will feel shortchanged. You will feel that this should not have happened, and you may say to yourself, "Why me?"
Right.
Right? Always remember that there will always be good things that happen. There will always be bad things that happen. Uh, when bad things happen, if you ask why me, please follow the same thing and say when good things happen, also ask why me. Right? That will probably balance your act. Two, uh, again, old school, but basics always help. Right? So some basics like, okay, at least need to have a decent communication to be able to reach another person. It shouldn't be so. Communication, please remember, is not about what I am saying, it is about how other is receiving it. That basic fundamental has to be there. Similarly, documentation, process. Um, I understand that it may sound bureaucratic and it may seem red tape, but it will take away 90% of your problems if you are process driven. It is only the 10% exceptions that you need to deal with. But if you're not process driven, then you are 100% exception based, which is a huge challenge, right? So that is there. Beyond that, I think the generation is much more intelligent than us. I do believe that as we progress, this generation will be faced with their next generation, which will be much more intelligent than them. They only need to be more accepting about that, and just embrace what is coming your way. Uh, it may be adverse. It may be, for example, you may have the most polluted world that you are going to face as it has existed ever. Um, that's how it is. Your bodies will adapt. Please go ahead and embrace it the way it is. Try to make it better if you can, for sure. Participate in it, in making it better. But then don't just sit back and complain about it, right? Either learn to live with it or you learn to change it, but don't just sit back and complain about it. So that's the way probably to go. I don't think I need to tell them this. Really, they are much smarter than us, and you are there. You can see yourself. You're starting a company of your own. I wouldn't have dreamt of that at that stage in my life. So I'm pretty confident that they don't need my advice. And well, if you need, just walk up and ask anybody. Have your mentors, surround yourself with mentors, ask anybody, and I'm pretty sure people will be up there to offer.
Great, great. I mean, thank you so much, for sharing that. Be you, be process driven, and don't wait for the change to happen. You can make that change yourself. Perfect. So on that note, thanks a lot for your time, Vinu, for talking to us and for the podcast. And it was a great, great conversation.
Great. Thanks, Rahul. Thanks a lot for having taken me on this. It was a fun chatting up with you and touching upon some topics which we don't get to really talk on a day-to-day basis in our office, Millie. But great to have caught up with you. Thank you so much.